You know what's funny? People act like pain is a glitch in the system. Like it ain't supposed to be there. They spend their whole damn lives running from it, crying about it, trying to patch it up with fake laughs, fake people, fake promises. But you sat with it, and that's why you're still breathing. That's why you're here, isn't it? Broken? Maybe. But still here. And that makes you dangerous, kid. 'Cause once someone survives hell without begging for mercy, they ain't scared of fire no more. You get what I'm saying? The ones who smile through pain, they ain't human anymore. They're something else. They've seen too much, felt too deep, lost too hard. They became their own rescue. Ain't no savior coming, never was. And deep down, you always knew that. You remember all those nights? The ones where your chest felt like it was holding 1,000 knives? The ones where you stared at the ceiling, wondering why they left, why they lied, why they chose everybody else but you. Yeah, those nights built you. Don't flinch when I say it. Look me in the eye and admit it. Pain made you. The real you. Not that soft version of you that begged to be loved. I'm talking about the quiet one. The one that stopped explaining himself. The one that got real still and started plotting, planning, becoming. You thought pain was punishment? No, it was training. While they were sleeping peacefully in their comfort zones, you were down there in the dark, learning to endure, learning to not need anyone, learning to fight when your fists were bleeding and your voice was gone. And now that you're here, scarred, but unshaken, they want to say you've changed. Number, you just finally became what the pain was molding you into. They'll never understand that kind of evolution. They think healing is about pretending it never hurt. You carry your wounds like armor. You don't need to hide them. That silence you learned, that's your superpower now. They wanted noise, reactions, breakdowns, explosions. You gave them quiet. You walked away when they expected a scream. You smiled while bleeding. And let me tell you something. Nothing messes with people more than a silent man they couldn't break. You want to know why they talk behind your back now? Because the front of you terrifies them. Because they know they threw stones at a man who built a kingdom with them. Let that sink in. You built a damn kingdom out of pain, and you didn't even brag. You didn't post about it. You just kept working, kept grinding, kept rising. That's how legends move. You see, people love underdogs until the underdog becomes the threat. You stayed humble, you stayed loyal, and they mistook that for weakness. They thought silence meant soft. They thought kindness meant permission. And now they see the consequences. You didn't scream, you improved. You didn't retaliate, you grew. And now that you've outgrown the little boxes they tried to fit you in, now they want to call you cold. No, you're not cold. You're focused. You're done explaining. You're done shrinking. You're done waiting for anyone to choose you. Pain gave you that gift. It stripped you down to the bones, shattered the illusions, tore off the masks. What's left? Just you. The raw, unfiltered, untouchable version of you. The one that doesn't beg. The one that doesn't chase. The one that smiles, even at pain. You ever notice how the ones who cause the most pain always act surprised when you go quiet? Like they didn't watch you bleed while they laughed. Like they didn't step on your heart and dance on the ashes of your peace. They expect you to just shake it off, move on, forget it happened. But here's the joke. They taught you silence, and now they're terrified of what it means. See, when you screamed, they felt safe. Noise is predictable. But now you don't scream. You just observe. You just calculate. You just disappear into the background like a ghost. A ghost with a memory and a motive and no fear left in his bones. And that's the thing about silence. It doesn't mean nothing's happening. It means everything is happening quietly. They don't understand what it takes to wake up every day with a war inside your chest and still show up with your head high. They don't know what it's like to stand alone in a room full of people who used to say they loved you and still not flinch. You learned how to survive without a safety net, didn't you? Learned to become your own anchor when the world kept cutting your ropes. And now that you don't need them, now they come crawling back with that same poison smile and those recycled apologies. But you ain't bitter. That's what makes you dangerous. You're not out for revenge. You just remember everything. You remember the nights you begged God to pull you out. The nights where your silence was screaming louder than words ever could. And now you wear that silence like a crown. Because what they don't get is that pain doesn't destroy real ones. It sharpens them. You're proof. They thought they'd break you, but all they did was reveal the steel underneath your skin. You ever notice how the strongest people are the ones who've lost the most? That's not a coincidence. That's design. Life don't hand out strength like candy. You gotta earn it in the dark. And you earned yours in silence while they slept easy. You wrestled with your own mind. While they laughed, you were buried in the weight of betrayal, abandonment, failure. And now look at you, still standing, still breathing, still dangerous. You became the very thing they can't define anymore. You're not what happened to you. You're what you did about it. They don't get that. They think moving on means forgiving everyone and hugging the people who stabbed you. No. Moving on means becoming so focused on your grind that their names become irrelevant. Moving on means building a life so solid their absence becomes a blessing. You don't have to hate them, just outgrow them. Let your silence scream what your words no longer need to say. Let your peace torment them louder than your pain ever could. That's the real revenge. And here's the truth most people won't admit. Nobody claps for you when you're healing. Nobody texts to say, I know it's hard, but I'm proud of you. They only show up when the results show. But that's okay. That's what separates you. You're not in this for applause. You're in this because you swore to yourself that you'd never be that broken again. You're in this because the old version of you, the soft, trusting, naive version, had to die so this version could survive. And now that you're here, you don't beg for love. You don't chase approval. You don't fold when it's heavy. You carry it quietly, relentlessly. You smile at pain now, not because it stopped hurting, but because you own it. You wear your scars like medals. You walk with the weight of every lie, every loss, every lesson, and you still don't crumble. That's power. That's what makes you unstoppable. Smile at pain, not to mock it, but to show it you're not afraid anymore. That's what breaks people. That's what breaks the world. A man who's been through hell and came back laughing. You know what pain really does? It burns away the unnecessary. It exposes what's real. You stop pretending. You stop wearing masks to make people comfortable. You stop lying to yourself about who loves you and who just loves using you. That's what it did to you, didn't it? It pulled back the curtain, made you see them for who they are, and it made you see yourself for the first time. You weren't weak. You were just too loyal. You weren't lost. You were just surrounded by noise. You weren't broken. You were just too open with the wrong people. But now, after all the silence and all the nights spent bleeding behind closed doors, you finally learned what it means to keep your power. You don't give it away anymore. You don't hand over your soul just because someone says the right words. You've become precise, careful, selective. And that scares people who used to walk all over you. They say you're cold now. Good. Be cold. Cold doesn't mean cruel. Cold means clear. Cold means your heart doesn't jump for people who dropped you. Cold means your time is now sacred, and your peace is no longer up for negotiation. They don't understand how hard it is to be soft in a world that eats the gentle alive. So you armored up. You stopped explaining your silence. You stopped apologizing for your boundaries. And that shift, that silence, that's where the real power is. Because once you learn to keep walking without looking back, without needing closure, without begging anyone to see your worth, that's when you truly become untouchable. You know what's brutal? People think pain is just a phase, something you outgrow. But pain is a teacher that never leaves. It stays with you, sits beside you at dinner, walks with you at night, sleeps in your bed. And instead of fearing it, you shook hands with it. You made it your mentor. You listened. And it taught you things comfort never could. It taught you patience, not the pretty kind, but the ugly kind. The kind where you wait while everything inside you is screaming to run. It taught you endurance, how to breathe underwater when everyone else is gasping for air. It taught you silence, not as surrender, but as strategy. And now, while they shout and panic and rush, you move in shadows. You move with intent. You don't react, you respond. When you speak now, it's with purpose. When you act, it's with precision. That's what pain does. It doesn't just wound, it awakens. Let them laugh. Let them talk. Let them misunderstand. You ain't in this for validation. You're in this for peace, for growth, for the version of you that was always there beneath the wreckage. That's who you're fighting for. And yeah, the road is lonely. Yeah, it's cold, but it's real. You're not pretending anymore. You're not performing for people who wouldn't bleed a drop for you. You've accepted that not everyone's gonna clap for your healing. Not everyone's gonna like your growth. And that's the point. Growth isn't about becoming who they want. It's about becoming who you needed when the world turned its back. That's who you are now. The storm they didn't see coming. And what a beautiful storm you've become. Calm on the outside. Chaos in your silence. You smile at pain now because it doesn't control you. It created you. It tried to bury you, but it forgot you were a seed. And while they were busy dancing on your grave, you were sprouting in silence, rooting deep, and now you're rising, quietly, unapologetically. Let them feel the weight of your absence. Let your silence be the echo of everything you endured and everything you became. You don't owe them noise. You don't owe them closure. You don't owe them anything, not even a goodbye. They thought the silence meant you were broken. They didn't know it was the sound of rebuilding. They thought you vanished. You didn't, you evolved. You were learning how to carry your wounds without bleeding on the people who never deserved your pain. That's what made you different. You didn't seek revenge. You sought redemption. You didn't scream. You studied. While they celebrated your downfall, you were mapping out your comeback. Not for them, for you. To prove to yourself that pain doesn't end you. It just introduces you to the version of yourself that doesn't fold, doesn't beg, doesn't crack under pressure. You met that version in your lowest moment, when everything went quiet, when no one answered, when even your shadow felt distant, and you kept breathing, you kept fighting, you kept standing in the storm with no umbrella and no hand to hold. That's when you earned your name. See, people think power comes from domination, from loudness, from control. But real power, it's restraint, it's discipline. It's refusing to lower your frequency to match theirs. It's walking away when you could destroy them. It's knowing you could burn the whole damn bridge and still choosing peace because you're too focused on the empire you're building on the other side. That's what separates you now. They live for drama, for chaos, for reactions. You live for silence, strategy, solitude. You became unshakable because you learned to stop explaining your worth. You stopped proving your value. You stopped auditioning for people who never deserved front row seats in your life. They don't realize that when you go silent, it's not because you've got nothing to say. It's because you've said too much, given too much, waited too long. And now you've shifted. You've stepped out of their reach, out of their games, out of their expectations. You no longer wait to be chosen. You choose yourself. You no longer cry for their approval. You validate yourself. You no longer water their gardens while your own is wilting. That version of you, the one that stayed, explained, apologized, tolerated, that version is dead, buried. And from the grave of that softness rose something sharper, harder, cleaner, a version of you that smiles even when it hurts. A version that knows pain is just the sharpening stone for people built to endure. You know what hurts the most? Not the betrayal, not the silence, not even the lies. It's the fact that you loved them honestly while they only loved you when it was convenient. That you showed up when it rained and they vanished when the skies got dark. That you gave everything and they gave nothing but expectations. But that's done now. You're not their lifeline anymore. You're not their backup plan. You're not the maybe they think they can return to when life gets hard. You've outgrown that version of yourself. And even if they come back crawling, crying, apologizing, you've learned. You've learned that peace is worth more than history. That loyalty without reciprocity is self-destruction. That love isn't supposed to hurt this much. And that healing doesn't require their presence. It only required your decision to walk away. So walk. Don't run. Don't explain. Don't leave a trail. Walk like a man who's tasted fire and made it part of his bloodstream. Walk like someone who's done begging the world to see his light. And when it gets heavy, and it will smile. Not because it's easy, but because you've carried heavier. Because you've already survived what they said you couldn't. Because pain taught you how to suffer in silence and rise with dignity. Because smiling at pain isn't weakness, it's defiance. It's your final laugh, your message to the world that says, I've bled, I've burned, I've broken, and I'm still here, still silent, still smiling. You ever notice how they look at you now? Like they don't recognize you anymore? That's because they don't. You're not the same. You're not that soft-hearted soul who used to answer every message within seconds, who used to forgive before the apology ever came, who used to bend until his spine cracked just to keep everyone else comfortable. That man is gone, and in his place stands something colder, quieter, stronger. See, Pain doesn't just leave bruises. It rewires your soul. It changes how you breathe. It changes how you look at the world. You stop romanticizing people. You stop holding on to empty promises. You stop chasing closure from cowards. And the moment you accept that some people were just lessons and not lifelines, everything shifts. You start choosing peace over presence, silence over explanations, distance over disrespect. And they hate that, because your silence tells the truth louder than your words ever could. They always expect the ones they break to stay broken. That's what scares them about you now. You didn't stay shattered. You picked up every piece with blood on your hands and rebuilt yourself sharper. You didn't look for pity. You disappeared, reconstructed yourself in silence, and came back unrecognizable. Now they call you distant, arrogant, heartless. No, you're not heartless. You're just done bleeding for people who wouldn't even hand you a bandage. You've stopped handing out access like it's free. You've learned the value of your energy, your time, your love. And now that you don't beg for anyone's attention, they're choking on their own silence. That's what happens when a kind man learns boundaries. The whole world calls him cruel. But deep down, you know the truth. You know the war it took just to look calm. You know the hell you crawled through just to find a little heaven inside your chest. And every time they try to pull you back to that version of yourself who tolerated everything, remind yourself, you died for this peace. You went through nights of questioning your worth, days of dragging your soul through grief, and years of pretending to be okay just so no one would worry. And now you wear silence like armor. You walk like a man who has nothing left to prove, because you don't. Let them wonder what happened to you. Let them feel your absence. Let them talk. You don't owe them a performance. You owe yourself a future, a real one that's quiet, clean, and free of the chaos you once called love. Don't let anyone pull you back into storms you already survived. Don't let familiarity trick you into thinking you owe them another chance. You don't. Growth is messy. Healing is brutal. But staying the same, that's soul suicide. And you didn't come this far just to remain a prisoner in your past. You were never meant to be soft forever. The world beat it out of you, and that's okay. That doesn't make you wrong. That makes you real. Because the ones who smile through pain aren't broken. They're forged. They don't crack under pressure, they become pressure. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're not here to be liked. You're here to build, to rise, to win, quietly, ruthlessly, with grace. And when you smile now, it's not for them. It's not for forgiveness. It's for you. It's your battle scar. It's your crown. It's your answer to a world that tried to silence you. You failed. I'm still here. You want the truth? Most people don't care how deep your wounds are, as long as you keep smiling. They'll sit across from you at the table, laugh at your jokes, and never once notice the war behind your eyes. And if you crack just once, if you let the pain leak out for a second too long, they call you too much, too intense, too emotional. So you learn to hold it in. You mastered the art of pretending, smiling when your world was on fire, laughing while choking on smoke, nodding while your soul screamed for help. And now that you've learned how to survive silently, they have the nerve to say you've changed. Of course you have. How could you not? How could you go through what you did and come out the same? That pain dug into your bones, twisted your heart, rewrote your beliefs. It stripped away the version of you that needed others to feel whole, and in its place, it left something raw, something unshakable. You became the kind of person who doesn't explain anymore. You don't ask, why me? You don't beg for understanding. You just move. You carry your scars like proof. Proof that you've walked through fire and didn't become the flame. That you've drowned in oceans of heartbreak and didn't let it flood your purpose. That you've been abandoned, forgotten, betrayed, and still you rise. Not out of pride, not to prove anyone wrong, but because the pain didn't kill you. And if it didn't kill you, it taught you. And now you walk differently. You speak less, you trust slower, you love smarter, not colder. Smarter. There's a difference. Because once you've been shattered, you stop handing your pieces to people with slippery hands. You stop opening your soul like it's a charity case. You stop waiting on apologies that'll never come. And that's when it happens. That moment of clarity. When you realize closure is a trap. That healing isn't about hearing, I'm sorry. It's about deciding that their lack of remorse won't hold your progress hostage. It's about stepping forward with blood still drying on your chest and saying, this pain is mine, and I'm done dragging it behind me like a broken chain. You don't forget. You just refuse to carry it anymore. That's the real weightlifting. Not the gym stuff, the soul stuff. And the more you grow, the more lonely it gets. That's the part they never tell you. That healing feels like abandonment. Because as you rise, the crowd thins out. People start falling off. Not because you changed, but because you finally started enforcing standards. You stopped settling for half love, half effort, half respect. And people who were only there for the old, pliable you, they can't survive the boundaries of the new you. So they leave. Or worse, they stay bitter, watching you from a distance, hoping you'll trip. But here's the joke. They don't understand that you already fell 1,000 times. You just stopped staying down. Now, you don't even react. You just smile. Not because it doesn't hurt anymore, but because you've learned how to carry pain without letting it change your posture. You don't flinch anymore when someone leaves. You don't panic when plans collapse. You've seen too much to be shaken by small things. And that calm, that's what scares them. Because when a man learns to stand in silence, when he no longer needs applause, when he's fueled by pain instead of destroyed by it, he becomes something ungovernable, something the world can't figure out, can't control, can't use. You've become that. You smile at pain now, not because you enjoy suffering, but because you've learned to weaponize it. You've learned that the most powerful thing in this world isn't revenge. It's silence. It's the ability to keep moving without bitterness, to grow without screaming, to rebuild without announcements. That's what power looks like. And you, my friend, you wear it well. It's strange, isn't it? The people who caused your pain are the ones who act like they were the victims, like they forgot every time they let you down, every time they pushed you away, then came back like nothing happened. Every time they made you feel like your emotions were too loud, your love too heavy, your silence too sharp. And when you finally stopped giving, stopped explaining, stopped showing up, they painted you as the villain. That's the game. They set the fire, then point fingers when you walk out of the flames wearing armor. And you learned to stop defending yourself. Because explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you is a waste of breath. You learned that real strength is saying nothing and walking away. Not because you're weak, but because they no longer deserve access to your voice. You ever realize how much energy you wasted trying to fix people who didn't even want to be fixed? How many nights you spent convincing yourself that if you just loved harder, tried more, stayed longer, they'd finally see your worth? But all it did was drain you. You gave pieces of yourself to people who couldn't even carry their own weight. You handed your soul to people who didn't even know what to do with a genuine heart. And they left you empty, hollow, questioning your value. But here's the truth they don't want you to discover. It was never about you not being enough. It was about them not being ready to face someone who was real in a world full of fakes. You were a mirror, and mirrors make liars uncomfortable. That's why you became dangerous the moment you chose yourself, the moment you stopped answering calls that disturbed your peace, the moment you stopped fighting battles that weren't yours, the moment you started choosing solitude over fake connection. That's when the tables turned. You see, people are okay with you as long as you're broken in ways they can benefit from. But when you start healing in ways that exclude them, that's when they panic. That's when they call you changed, cold, distant. But what they're really saying is, you're no longer easy to use. And that's your victory. That's your proof of growth. Now, your silence isn't empty. It's sacred. It's your shield. It's where you protect your progress from those who never clapped for your healing. It's where you recharge, where you plan, where you remind yourself, of everything you endured and everything you're building. You don't move the same anymore. You don't tolerate disrespect wrapped in jokes. You don't entertain connections that feel one-sided. You've learned to read energy, not words. You've learned that consistency is louder than any promise. You've learned that some people are only loyal when it's convenient, and when it's not, they vanish. And you've stopped chasing ghosts. You've stopped begging for closure. You've stopped mourning people who are still alive, but dead to your soul. Because now you understand that peace costs something, and sometimes it costs people. It costs comfort. It costs the familiar. But you're willing to pay that price. Because nothing, not history, not loneliness, not fear, is worth sacrificing the version of you that you bled to become. You'd rather walk alone than walk in circles. You'd rather be misunderstood in silence than loved conditionally in chaos. That's what real strength is. It's not loud. It's not flashy. It's not boastful. It's calm. It's quiet. It's strategic. It's knowing exactly who you are and never letting anyone shrink that. So yeah, smile. Smile at pain. Smile at silence. Smile at the ashes of the bridges you had to burn just to save yourself. Smile because you've seen the worst and you still show up. Not with vengeance in your heart, but with power in your eyes. That's your story now. That's your legacy. You didn't just survive, you transformed. They'll never admit it, but they miss the version of you that bled for them, the one that lowered his voice so they could speak louder, the one that stayed up when his soul was collapsing just to make sure they were okay, the one that waited, explained, forgave again and again. But that man, he's gone, and the silence you gave them. In return for the noise they brought into your life, that's justice. That's balance. See, people like them. They love chaos because chaos gives them control. But you pulled the rug out from under that chaos when you stopped responding, when you stopped explaining your value, when you stopped needing to be understood by people who made a sport out of misunderstanding you. And now that your silence is the loudest sound they hear, they finally realize the gravity of your absence. But it's too late, isn't it? Because now you found beauty in the solitude they thought would break you. You learned to walk through your days without checking if they were still watching. You built your own rhythm, one beat at a time, without their validation. And that silence, the one they thought would suffocate you, it became your sanctuary. It taught you to sit with yourself, to listen to your own heartbeat instead of their noise. It taught you that not everyone who claims to love you knows how to treat you. That not every connection deserves a second chance. That some people are seasonal and you were trying to make them permanent. Pain taught you that. It didn't whisper, it screamed. And in that scream, you heard your calling. You didn't just survive heartbreak, you dissected it. You looked at every shattered piece and figured out which ones were worth keeping. And you didn't glue yourself back together with hope. You used purpose. You didn't become colder. You became clearer. You didn't turn bitter. You got better. That's the difference between you and the rest. Most people let pain cage them. You let it sharpen you. Most people wear their wounds like excuses. You wear yours like warnings. Don't mistake my peace for weakness. Don't mistake my silence for absence. Don't mistake my distance for loss. Because everything you do now is intentional. Every step forward is strategic. Every word is calculated. You've learned the art of moving without making noise. And that's what keeps them up at night. That's what rattles them. You're no longer predictable, no longer available, no longer apologetic for the space you take up. You used to make yourself small for them. Now you make yourself solid for you. You used to water them while you were wilting. Now you've become your own garden. You grew roots so deep in pain that no storm can pull you out again. That's the foundation now. And from that pain, from that quiet agony you endured alone, you started to rise, slowly, silently, powerfully, until you became unrecognizable. Now, when they say your name, it tastes different in their mouth. It's no longer associated with weakness, or desperation, or dependence. It carries weight. It carries mystery. It carries silence. Because they know they can't reach you anymore, not because you hate them, but because they no longer fit into the reality you've constructed. One built on peace, strength, and purpose. You no longer react. You no longer explain. You no longer wait. And when they come knocking again, you don't even answer. Not out of spite, but because you're busy building what they tried to break. And that is your loudest revenge. So smile at pain, not to show them you're okay, but to show yourself you made it. Smile because they buried you, and you became the seed. Smile because they left you in the dark, and you learned how to glow without them. Smile not for the cameras, not for the audience, but for the warrior inside you that never gave up, never folded, never lost faith, even when the world went quiet.